And now I'm excited to introduce Angie and Sangeetha from Northwestern Mutual, who will be moderating today's event, How to Grow and Excel in Your Career in Tech. Thank you both so much for joining us today. And Angie, I will let you take it away from here.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rachel. Hello, everybody. We are so excited to join you today. I'm Angie Emery. I am a communications strategist and storyteller in technology here at Northwestern Mutual. That means I have the interesting challenge of positioning a 160-something insurance company as an innovative thought leader, tech-forward organization, and truly a destination for top tech talent across the country. But it also means I have the absolute privilege of sharing the stories of the incredible work that our teams, leaders, and company are doing to push not just our company or our industry, but the entire tech ecosystem forward towards one that's more diverse and inclusive. I'm also a mom to twin 4-year-old daughters, which took what I would say was an interest and created an absolute passion for helping girls and women find their voice, know their value, identify supporters, and advocate for what they truly deserve. And today I have the honor to sit down with a friend, a mentor, a leader, and an absolute force of a human, Sangeetha Rai, and talk to you all about our experiences as women in technology. So Sangeetha, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do here at Northwestern Mutual?
Absolutely. I am so excited to be here talking to all of you today. So I wear 3 hats at Northwestern Mutual. The first one is I'm a VP of Technology Customer Success, which means I get to lead an award-winning team of analysts, relationship managers, and support engineers that support our customers. And the second thing is that I'm the site leader for our beautiful New York campus. I mean, if you can see the view here, we see the Statue of Liberty, a Hudson River. I get to lead this campus. And I'm responsible for the experience of the employees at our New York campus, as well as build alliances, philanthropy, build our tech brand here in New York. And my third hat is the executive sponsor for Women in Tech at Northwestern Mutual. And that means I get to work with Angie and all the wonderful, passionate women and allies in NM in attracting, growing, and developing our female talent, as well as not only within NM, but also within the community. And as many of the programs that we have built as for external women as well. So it's three different roles I play, but what ties it all together is service, which I am super, super passionate about. So I'm hoping that we can keep this interactive on chat, ask your questions, throw in your comments. I'd love to learn from you as well. And I know that everyone else tuning in would love to do that as well. So thank you, Angie, and back to you.
Awesome. So, Sangeetha, we've got a bunch of questions to cover about your experience and what we're doing for women in technology here and outside of the company. You ready to dig in?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Let's do it. We're seeing more and more people, especially women, come into careers in technology that didn't start here or even imagine themselves working in technology. Myself included, I have a decade plus of marketing and communications, advertising agency world. Your own path here was definitely not a linear one. What first drew you to a career in technology, and how did you know when to take the leap into it?
Yeah, so actually I want to start with some questions for the audience here on chat. How many of you have the job you wanted or dreamed of as a kid?
Great question.
So the question is, how many of you have the job you wanted or dreamed of as a kid?
You know, what's interesting too, Sangeetha, is people populate that. Truly, I didn't even know this was a job when I was a kid, right? When I think about what I thought was even possible, didn't even know this was something I could do.
Exactly. No, I agree. And so, research says that just 6% of us have the jobs we wanted as a kid, right? And the second question I have for you all is, can you guess how many jobs an average person has in their lifetime? 10, 15, all right, close. Depends on.
Yeah, generationally, that's a great point.
So yeah, so Good. So, it turns out that an average person has 12 plus jobs, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics study. So, my job, I see some of you saying my job didn't exist years ago. So my job didn't exist 15 years ago, and I don't think it'll exist 15 years from now. So the mantra that I live by, and the lesson that for all of us, is that who you are supposed to be, who you are today, and who you will be tomorrow is unpredictable. The only thing that is constant is change and how you adapt to it. So be prepared for changes, whether it's changes in technology, changes in your environment, whatever the changes are, and pivot quickly. So I'll share a little bit about my journey into tech and also into NM as well, because that I think is an interesting story that had some valuable lessons for me and hopefully some takeaways for you. So I came to the US 20 years ago. I wanted to be an ad executive, but again, I saw that for an immigrant like me, the opportunities were in tech. So I jumped into tech, right? So I have a unique background because I started off as a developer. I did testing, I did project management, I did customer success. And now I feel like I'm in a great place. I'm the happiest that I've ever been. And to my point earlier, my role didn't exist previously, may not exist a few years from now. So what I have to do is to stay relevant. And three things that I always keep in mind is, number one, that you have to be able to take risks. The second thing is that keep an open mind to what the possibilities are. If there is something that I really am passionate about and I get the opportunity, I say yes, and then I figure out how to do it. And then know the future of work, constantly keep reading and be an any learner and stay relevant. So, take risks, keep an open mind, and know the future of work as much as you can. Nobody has a crystal ball, but continue to keep your eyes and ears open, right? So then a funny story of how I came into Northwestern Mutual, and I joined Northwestern Mutual about 5 years ago. So the reason I made that switch was because the job that I was in was not fulfilling and it was time to move on. And I saw this great opportunity here at NM for a director position. So, I felt like I was a great fit. So I applied and I was waiting anxiously. How many of you have experienced that? You apply for a job and you're sitting and waiting, right? So then a day or two later, I got this dreaded automated email that I was rejected for this position. So in those 2 days, I had read so much about Northwestern Mutual and I really, really wanted to work here. So I was like, you know what, I have to try something creative. I have to try something different. So I looked up a connection on LinkedIn and I reached out to an old colleague who knew someone at Northwestern Mutual. And this colleague, I hadn't connected with him in 12 years. And so I felt a little bit odd doing it, but this cheerleader, my personal cheerleader in my head was like, do it. What's the worst that can happen, right? So then I reached out to this guy, Danny, and Danny was super kind enough to introduce me to his connection, Ben, who worked at Northwestern Mutual. So then I spoke to Ben and I said, look, I'm really qualified for this job, and why did I get rejected? So he agreed that I was a good fit, and he said he would recommend me to the hiring manager, Andy. So I waited, and after 2 days of waiting, Ben came back to me and he said, they're thinking of making an offer to somebody else, to another candidate. And I was really disappointed, but I didn't want to give up. So I had an idea and I said, I was going to try something unconventional. And one thing that I learned, and this is what I always follow, is like when you have an insight or an idea or an inspiration, do something about it in 24 hours, or the odds of you doing anything, of ever acting on it, are very, very low, right? So I looked up this job profile and I looked at the job description, I put a deck together of all of my accomplishments that I could really do this job and I could do it really well. And I was like a little bit hesitant because I'm like, this is not something people normally do. You hear that they're making an offer to somebody else. You're like, okay, then I'm going to try for something else. But then this personal cheerleader in my head was like, do it. What's the worst that can happen? At the most, they're going to come back and say no. So I reached out to Ben and I said, it's a bit forward of me, but I thought I was a good fit. So I'm going to put together this deck, which shows that, and just please forward it to the hiring manager. If he doesn't want to talk to me after that, it's fine. So, a day or two later, I was like really anxious. And a day or two later, I got a call asking for an interview slot with the hiring manager. And then we were supposed to be for 30 minutes, but we ended up talking for an hour. And then he invited me to come for an interview in person. And our CTO, she talked to me for 15 minutes and she was like, you know what, we're offering you a job. So I left the interview with a job offer. I started 2 weeks later and I couldn't be happier, right? So two things I think that got me here at Northwestern Mutual, it's the best career decision I made, is one is just tenacity and persistence, right? So I think, effort only fully releases its reward after a person refuses to quit. And the second thing is taking a risk. That inner voice that you have can become your strongest ally. And so you always have to have that personal cheerleader in your head motivating you and saying, what's the worst that can happen? The last thing I'll say is that some people tend to think that there's a perfect time for everything, and this is not it. But if you wait for the perfect timing to make your path, you'll wait forever. So go ahead. If you're thinking about getting into technology, go ahead and take the leap into whatever it is that your passion is.
I love that. Sangeetha, I love what you said about if you have that sneaking suspicion, if you have that feeling in your gut, do something. I actually landed in technology because I watched our own CIO, Neil Sample, interact with other people at a meeting that I was not involved in at all. And when the meeting was over, I sent him a note. I wrote a physical card. It's one of my love languages is to send mail. And I wrote him a card and I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know anything about technology. There's no roles in communications in technology as it stands today, but I saw the way you led and I want to work for someone like that. And just like you said, I don't know how I'm going to make it happen, but I'm going to figure it out later. And I think that sort of manifestation of just deciding I need to make that happen. 2 weeks later, a role that didn't exist before opened up on this team and here I am. And so it was responding to what I felt needed to happen and that idea of we'll figure it out later.
Yeah. And sometimes, the doors are open and you grab and take the opportunity. Sometimes you go take the opportunity and they will open the door for you. So totally. Great example, Angie.
So, okay, we covered a little bit about, listening to that cheerleader, going for it when we feel it coming. But I think we also hear a lot, especially from women, again, about this idea of imposter syndrome. And I have to imagine that you had a number of forces working to create that narrative for you. You were an immigrant to the US, started out in advertising. Being a woman in technology alone can create that voice for us. Were there people in your life, decisions you had to make, even processes that you had to challenge that empowered you to truly ignore that voice and keep pressing for the path that you wanted?
Yeah, that's a great question. We talk about equal rights, we talk about equal pay and so on, and it's important for us to keep that fight going, right? We have to do that. But at the end of the day, it's not just about equal rights. It's also about how we think. We also have to reshape our own perceptions of how we view ourselves. I think that's absolutely necessary because, too often, Angie, women and girls are told not to be ambitious, right? So one of the things that I've seen in women is that often what men will do is that they will take the jobs they aren't ready for yet. And what a lot of women will do is they'll say, oh, let me be prepared. Let me feel like I have, I want to make sure I have 100% of the qualifications. And we don't end up applying for some of these opportunities. So I think that's something that we have to learn to do, to take that risk, right? And not let perfect be the enemy of the good. I, personally, I grew up in India where girl children were seen as a burden. So I was always told, girls can't do this, don't rock the boat, be grateful for what you have. And the expectation was to follow the rules. I never follow the rules, but the expectation was there. And what I realized over the years is that the way to change this for us is to recognize our value and demand what we deserve, right? So we have to recognize that over delivering and outperforming your peers and results is, unfortunately, alone is not enough when you come from an underrepresented community. So I'm a woman, I'm a person of color, and being Asian, I'm seen as this stereotype of being this hard worker and a contributor, but there's always that bamboo ceiling. a lot of times in my career, I had the work, but not the title and not the compensation. So what I've had to do is that to learn to be curious and recognize my own value and to take that risk to demand what I deserve. So I think, like it's some things you have to unlearn, like those bad lessons that you look where we were taught as children. And to your question about imposter syndrome, I think every one of you here has a seat at the table because you deserve it. So you should not doubt yourself. One tactical thing, and we can go to the next question. One tactical thing that I do every day is at the end of the day, I spend 2 minutes really talking about like what are like two of things that I kicked ass that I did really well that day, and that has helped me build more and more confidence over the years.
Awesome. I had a conversation with a fellow woman in tech just yesterday, and she was thinking about applying for a job, and she did exactly what you said. She said, I just don't know if I can do exactly what the job title said. And we kind of collectively came to this epiphany. Of course you can't. If you are fully qualified and can do that job, then you should be applying for the next one. You're applying for a job further ahead of you. Of course you aren't going to be capable of that exact job today. And if you are, aim higher, girl, because that one's not the one for you.
Exactly. And that's a great example, because I think you have to show potential to learn, be able to do the job. And if you have, 50% of that and you show potential, I think, you can definitely nail it.
Absolutely. So Sangeetha, having worked fairly closely together in the last couple of years, I know how important it is to you to have people around you, the allies who will help you see that worth and will advocate with you. What are some ways that you have fostered that kind of culture on your team, but also more broadly here at NM?
Yes. So it's really disappointing. Women make only 28% of tech in the workforce, right? It's an increase from the last 2 years, but it is not enough. So with that, there aren't a lot of women of color, especially Black and Latina in tech, and even less women leaders in tech. So we need more women in tech, regardless of what you are doing in tech. What this means for us that we are in tech, we are in that statistics of being in tech, and we have a privilege, and we have to own that privilege, kind of like Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility, and we have to, being that leader or that influencer or a contributor in tech, it's about what we do with that privilege in the role that we hold. I'm going to ask you all to know that you have that privilege and think of how you can help others. I'll talk about 2 ways you can do that and what we're doing at NM. The number one thing I think is that we have to be good allies, right? So although I have worked very, very hard in my career, I am grateful for the allies who helped me get here. A long time ago in my career, early in my career, in my one of my first leadership roles, one of the men on my team, he actually came to me and he said, "You are not qualified to be my leader," right? And he refused to work for me. He actually applied for another position right away. And another man on the same team repeatedly berated me, right? So fortunately, I had the courage to stand up for myself. And I also had really great allies. My boss and my colleagues in human resources, they actually stood by my side and helped me remove these bad actors and their unacceptable behavior. And I was able to continue my career journey. Every one of us here has had allies who have helped us. So it's our turn now to do the same for someone else. And that first step is to figure out our why, who we are, and who we want to be. The second thing I would say is the power of validation and championing for each other. We can go further faster together. So we have to be confident enough in ourselves that we can champion other women, we can champion others to do their best as well. And one form of championing for each other is validation. I think it's really an important thing that we can give to each other. I was listening to Oprah a couple of months ago, and one thing she said that stuck with me is that she's talked to 30,000 people on her show, and all the 30,000 had one thing in common, right? They all wanted validation. So whether she had President Obama on the show or whether she had Beyonce on the show, they all at the end of what they did, they mouthed to her like, did I do okay? So, so I think it really helps. One thing is one thing that leaders, allies, and what you can do for other women is that validate each other, especially when they're going outside their comfort zone. And one part of the question that you had, I think, was about how do we foster that culture in many at NM. So I'll just answer that really, really quick. So two things I'll highlight amongst many things that we're doing. The first one is tone from the top. So our leaders model this behavior of championing, of being really good allies and lead by example, which sets the tone for everyone else to do the same. And the second thing is enterprise resource groups. We have a very active enterprise resource groups, and they are ranked top ERGs in the country. And what they've done is they've helped build this inclusive culture and helped us build inclusive products as well. So there are a few women in tech ones, which I will highlight later on in the conversation.
Awesome. And I think, Sangeetha, my follow-up to your validation piece would be, we have to be willing to hear that. I can nod to a number of times in my own career and working with you where, I don't know, maybe like right now is a great example where you say, Angie, come on, you're coming with me, let's do this together. And my immediate internal voice is, no way, not ready, can't do it, it's not me, who else should we be looking for? And so I think as important as that validation is, we have a responsibility to ourselves to hear it. And to your point earlier, you have a seat at the table, you are given an opportunity because somewhere someone believes that you're worthy of it. And so don't get in our own way. I think, listening when someone says that, because truly, and you've given examples, all it takes is one person who says, it's you, it's now, you're ready. And we surely don't want to be the reason that doesn't come to fruition. So listening when that validation happens.
Absolutely.
Sangeetha, can you talk a little bit about the WIT squad that we've developed here at Northwestern Mutual and extended this year beyond just our internal walls?
Yeah, sure. So the Women in Tech mentorship program, or the WIT Squad program, it's a group mentorship program for women. It's free for external and internal women. It's about a 6-month course. We had the first WIT Squad we piloted last year. We didn't know anything about it. It was me and 2 other women that were super, super passionate. We wanted to do something to give back, right? So at the end of that first year, we had 54 women in the pilot, and it was just only internal to Northwestern Mutual. At the end of it, we looked at some results, and they were amazing. We had 22% of the women had a higher performance rating than the year before. And 21% of the women had new roles. So either they were promoted or they had lateral roles. So this year we opened it up to external women as well. And we have about 120 women. I think maybe some of them are here today, I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. I want to see what the results look like. And so basically it's 6 months. You get coached through an external coach on a topic every month, as well as you get to work on the exercises after the fact. So it's about, some of the things we're talking about today, like risk-taking, storytelling, spontaneous communication, how to be vulnerable, all of those things, put together. So the next one will be in Q1 next year. So please add me on LinkedIn, because I will be announcing it when it opens up. And I would love for everyone here to join the squads, because your stories will help champion others as well, and you'll get to learn from each other too.
That, honestly, the WIT Squad is a great example of so many of the things that we've talked about already today. You said, hey, Angie, you should throw your hat in this ring. And I thought, I new to technology, I don't know anything. And then come to find out that my entire WIT Squad, save for 4 of the 6 of us, stumbled upon technology, and we're all feeling these same things of imposter syndrome. We don't belong here. Should we have a voice if we're still learning? And so it's been incredibly helpful to just have that peer-to-peer shared experience. And I think one of the most incredible things for me in the WIT Squad is that its foundation is built upon vulnerability and transparency. And so it's created this incredibly safe space to be open, be honest, be raw, share your fears, and get that kind of camaraderie and validation that you talked about earlier without any of the threat that we might feel if we were to do the same thing, with a colleague or a, supervisor kind of situation.
I mean, in my squad, I think two of the people that are on my squad also were able to apply for new roles, and we really champion them. So it's all about, like, to your point, learning, validating, championing each other, and your squad has your back.
Absolutely. All right, so we touched a little bit on this earlier. People probably don't think of a 160-year-old insurance company when they think technology. What is it about Northwestern Mutual specifically that excites you about working in technology here versus somewhere else?
Yeah, so as someone that lives and breathes service, what I love most about Northwestern Mutual is how much we care about the employee and client experience. I've seen it around the decisions we've made for our employees and customers many times, and I think, wow, I am so fortunate to work for a company that genuinely cares, right? And I honestly, I'm not just saying that because I work here, but because I left one of my previous roles because they didn't care about the customer experience. So that service element is super important to me, given the role that I do. Secondly, I think we have this locate for your day policy, which means you have the flexibility to decide if you want to be home or you want to work from one of our beautiful campuses in Milwaukee or New York. So as a mom of two kids, this is important to me to have that flexibility and to be able to balance my home and my work. And then lastly, we have this culture of fun in our technology function, and the senior leadership team is very, very approachable, right? So for example, we could Slack or just message our CIO or even me or my peers and say, hey, I'd love to grab some coffee to learn about your department, and it's totally okay. And we're also vulnerable and very silly. I'll give you an example. So one of our fundraisers, we had my boss, our CIO, I report to our CIO, he promised the entire function that if we exceed our goals, he was going to make us all dance to a video of Footloose. And and we exceeded our goals. So and we were all given these, the video and like different roles to play. And I had this role, I don't know if you guys have watched the video of this woman like moving her head and like dancing. And to me, I'm like, I've never seen a woman leader do this, but if I don't do this, then I can't be the leader that I wish to see for everyone else. So, just being vulnerable, being silly, and just being fun. I think it's a great culture that we have at Northwestern Mutual.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I can offer the flip side of that as an employee, seeing your leaders, be a little bit raw and vulnerable. And, you could see visibly how uncomfortable it made some of our leaders, but the fact that they were willing to step outside of their comfort zone and kind of be a little bit more playful in the spirit of this great cause. That's, to your point, it's something that we don't always see in leadership. And so that kind of transparency and being able to be a little bit more silly was, I think it's kind of the tone of our function and one of the reasons that I love it so much.
Definitely.
So you mentioned earlier that, despite making up half of the US workforce, women are still vastly underrepresented in STEM careers, only about 28%. Despite that increasing, it's still not enough. How do you think we can encourage more women to explore careers in technology? And then also, what are the benefits of doing so?
Yeah. So let me talk a little bit about why diversity is important in tech, right? So number one thing is that diversity is important because it helps us build better, more inclusive and better products and services. I was actually doing a keynote for this, and I researched, and it was really shocking the number of examples I saw. And I'll just talk about two really quick. One was that, cars automobiles were crash tested with dummies that were modeled after average male height, weight, and stature until 2011. And because of that, female drivers were at 47% more likely to be seriously injured in a car crash. The second one that was like super shocking for me was that soap dispensers didn't work on black skin. because of the infrared light. There's so many examples like that. And so the thing one is that it helps us, having a diverse team helps us build better and more inclusive products. And thing two is that diverse teams perform better. There's so much research out there. We don't even have time to cover it here, but there's so much research out there that shows that. And one statistics that actually related to women that I loved was that female representation in top management leads to an increase of 42 million in firm value. So that was an incredible stat that I came across as well. So so I think that diversity is important. We need women, we need diverse people in technology. And the second thing is from the opportunity perspective. Tech careers are in demand like never before. The tech job postings actually increased 16% in the US in Q2 alone this year. So there's so much to offer in tech, whether you get your adrenaline rush from coding, or whether you get it from protecting our company from hackers, or you love data and you love analyzing data, or you love supporting the customers to get the best value out of technology. There are opportunities for different skills and different interests within technology. A few things that you can do. First is participate in industry events. Grace Hopper is a great one. I've attended Grace Hopper in the past. To see thousands of women technologists under one roof, you're gonna get goosebumps. It's just an amazing feeling. But we also have a number of other conferences, and I want to highlight a conference that we have. Last year, we piloted our first ever Women in Tech conference. It actually came up with my boss and I just talking about it and saying, hey, women are really affected by this pandemic, and Grace Hopper is expensive and it's virtual. So what can we do to give back? So we put together our own conference last year, and Laila Ali did the keynote with me. And we had 2,500 registrations, 25 companies speaking, 50 speakers. So it was a huge hit, and we got a lot of great feedback. And this year we plan to do the same again on December 2nd. So it's a free conference, would love for you to register. And we hope to have 5,000 attendees, 60 speakers from 30 different companies. We have Google, we have Amazon, Wells Fargo, Capital One, Slack, a lot of different companies speaking as well. So I would say, number one thing to do is participate in industry events. The second thing I would say is network. LinkedIn is great. Don't be afraid to just reach out. I mean, there's so many people that have reached out to me and said, hey, I just want to talk to you about your area and just get some feedback on, whether it's a good fit for me. And I always, most of the time, I'm always responding and saying, yeah, let's meet for 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever my time permits me. And people are actually very helpful. So reach out, but figure out how to send your message so they know that you're not trying to sell them something. You're just trying to have conversation about your career, and people are happy to help. So industry events, network, and the other thing is test and learn. And I'm a great example of test and learn because I told you I have had various different opportunities within tech, from testing to developing to project management to customer success, different roles as well. So tech is a great career. It's great pay. There's mobility, innovative projects. You are developing durable skills for your future, but also there's so much change and evolution. It's just exciting to be in this field for sure.
Absolutely. I love that too. Thinking back to when you originally asked the question of the group, did you think this was going to be your career? A number of people said, like, my job didn't exist. So I think, when I think about networking, it's not just who it's who the people know. And you said it, Sangeetha, most people are more than happy. We're humans after all. Most people are happy to talk about themselves. And so even if it's not because they have a job open, or maybe it's not even a company you want to work at, I think there's so much value in just learning, asking someone to sit down and talk about themselves. What do you do? What is your career? I think especially when we look at getting women into technology who maybe don't have the experience or don't have a traditional path, there is so much learning to be done about the types of careers that don't require you to understand how to program or code or even fully understand the complexity that is the tech world. And one of the things that has come out of the WIT squad that I've learned so much about all of these different careers is there's a value to that diverse perspective of someone who hasn't, grown up in technology. There are some soft skills that are not innate to those careers. There are some, there's a huge value in having a different way that you approach things that brings tremendous diversity of thought and perspective to the projects that really complements those who maybe have had a more traditional path into technology.
Yeah,
I did put the link to register to the conference in the chat. So if you're at all interested, join us. We've got Abby Wambach, we've got Reshma Saujani, who founded Girls Who Code, and we're looking at 60 speakers from 30 different companies, Google, Amazon, Wells Fargo, IBM. It's going to be an incredible day. Last year was unbelievable. We had so much energy and excitement, and we're just looking to really blow last year out of the water this year. So we hope you can join us.
Yeah.
Okay, I think, Sangeetha, what we'll do is open up. We have a couple of questions already from the audience, but don't get too comfortable because we're going to close with some lightning round questions. So you're still on, just so you get a break for a minute here. Okay. There was one question that came in through the chat. Erin said, I've not had a lot of luck with WIT. I don't have a membership, but I try to join what I can. Do you include age with diversity? I'm an older woman who changed careers and I'm having a tough time getting to the next level.
So is this about getting into the Women in Tech group, or?
I think she's talking a little bit generally about how do we consider age when we look at diversity, and how could she maybe have some more success in trying to get to the next level despite not having always been here.
Yeah, I think that, yes, diversity includes all of it, right? We want to have different perspectives, people that have had a lot of experience, people that are just coming into the field. So I think it is a combination of all. And what you can do is, again, you have to figure out what your interests are, what your strengths are, and what you want to do, and then just go for it. And then if there are things like, for example, one of the people that I mentor, one thing that I say is that when they try to get to that next level, I always say that if you're already in the job, look at the job description, right? And see what are some things that for that next level, and see what are some things that you need to do, and be very, very intentional about doing those things. So you can actually now go back and say, look, I'm already doing these things, or I'm on my way to doing these things. Having that conversation is very important, because one of the things I've realized, not so much in Northwestern Mutual, but in my previous roles, is that I did have the work, but I never had the title, or I wanted to do something, but I had to have the conversation to say, okay, this is where I want to go. A part of it is the company giving you the opportunities, but a lot of it is on you, is how you can market yourself. The second thing, so that's one thing. The second thing is that networking is very important. I'm actually really impressed by a lot of folks that actually reach out to me and say, hey, can we just grab coffee so I understand what's happening in your department? And sometimes, the conversation sticks with you, and if the leaders do have an opportunity, they reach out. The third part is, so there's networking, but there's also the third part is, what can you do beyond what's available in your company, in your job, right? So there's a lot of women in my team and even in the company that are very active in our enterprise resource groups. So they're everywhere. So when opportunities pop up, their names are already on our mind. So there's a lot you can do in terms of knowing what you want, developing your skill, networking, as well as trying to do things that bring you visibility as well.
I also think, Sangeetha, we had this conversation quite a bit about, not just knowing your value, but being able to articulate it. And I always kind of think about it as your unique superpower. So early on in my career, I was often told, you're too loud, you speak up too much, kind of more of that, like, know your place. And And now, many years later, I've realized that's my superpower. I'm not afraid to speak up. I can be comfortable speaking at many different levels. And what was once kind of told to me as a get back in your box is actually one of my unique superpowers. And so I think, for Erin, maybe instead of hearing that narrative that you've been fed, that it's because of your age, how can you flip that on its head and say, here's what I can do because of my unique superpower, my experience in my career, that somebody else may not be able to do. And I think we're very often, people are trying to fit us into a box, and that removes that unique superpower, and it's finding a way to articulate it. And that's really where the magic happens.
Yeah.
All right, we've got another question. Oh, sorry. Did you want to say something else, Sangeetha?
No. I was going to say that when you do that, right, you pave the way for everybody else as well, because you said you're allowed or whatever else, but they actually see it in you and how awesome you are, and then you make it easier for people that follow you. So it's a great point.
Yes. All right, our next question. Can you suggest ways for IT professionals with extensive experience returning to workforce after patient advocacy career gap of 10 years? Methods to reach out, where to apply, or other organizations that might be able to help?
Yeah, so when I was looking for my role previously, I think just looking at the different sites like Indeed and other areas, I think Indeed, Monster, and LinkedIn and Glassdoor were the 4 that I used. But also that's one. And the second thing is LinkedIn. Obviously, if you see these positions, don't just apply for them, actually find people that are in those companies. And if you have a connection, that's great as well. There's a lot of career fairs. I think we have a couple in Northwestern Mutual. Angie, I don't know if you want to speak to those, but we have a lot of opportunities like that at Northwestern Mutual, where we are looking for diverse candidates. We are looking for people that are great talent. It doesn't matter if you have a gap of 10 years or whatever that is. I think that those are some things that I would definitely do, and network as much as possible. There's a lot of, I don't know where you live, but there are a lot of community events or meetups in tech. So just networking is super important too.
Yeah, and I think, especially with something like a gap in your career, I myself, when I had my twin girls, I went to a part-time role. And then when I joined NM, I took a role that was admittedly on paper, in my opinion, and in everybody else's, sort of less than what my experience would have warranted. And at the time, instead of proudly owning that, I kind of adopted some shame about it and didn't talk about it a lot. And I realized that part of it was because I didn't have an example. I didn't have someone to point to say, well, she did it, and now look at her. She's, light years ahead in her career. It didn't kill her career. She was able to bounce back. So I think on top of what you're saying, Sangeetha, is once you find a place to land, own that. And remember, you say all the time, Sangeetha, you wanted to be the leader that you wished you saw. I think that's applicable whether you're in a official leadership position or not. Be the woman in the professional setting that you wished you saw. I wished that I saw someone who said, look, 2 newborns at home, really hard. I'm going to take a step here, focus here, and I'll come back when I'm ready. And so I think, shutting down those voices of, oh, this is going to be hard, no one's going to want me, and instead saying, yeah, I made a choice for me. I found my passion and I made a choice, and now I'm making a different choice, and that's okay. The paths look different, and there is no one path to success because it's what you want for you.
Yeah, and I will add to your point, when I look for, I gave the example of my previous company, I was not happy there. So when I took the job at Northwestern Mutual, I actually took a step down. I was a senior director in my previous company. I took a director level position, and I started with 2 employees that were reporting to me. And today I have, 3 hats, and really my own team is about 600 people, and it's all in a matter of 5 years, right? So when you go back, if there is a job that you like and you think you would be good at, and there's opportunities for you to grow, to take it and see what it offers you, and I think you'll be fine.
And so you said it earlier, right? You're happier than you've ever been, and at the time when you're making that decision, it feels scary to take the step back, but you defined what was important for you at the time and what was going to make you happy, and it came to fruition. It happens. There is a question here about more information about the WIT squad. So Sangeetha, would you say the best way is to connect on LinkedIn, and that's really where we would be sharing it?
Yes. So we're already in process with our squad for this year. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I will be sharing information possibly around March of next year. But it's a great program, and there's always a wait list. But this year we plan to have even more. Like I said, we started with nothing. We had great results. Now we opened it up externally last year, and we want to open it up to more people this year.
Excellent. I would also say earlier you mentioned career fairs and open roles at Northwestern Mutual. Northwesternmutual.com/careers is a great place to start. There's a talent community there that you can opt into to be kept up to date of upcoming events, career fairs, the conference that we're holding, open roles. That's a great place to start if you are interested in a career here at Northwestern Mutual. And as Sangeetha said, connect with either of us. We're happy to, I don't know if you can tell, but we're kind of passionate about sharing this company, the team, and the cool stuff that we're doing here. So we're happy to connect as well. Okay, I don't know if I see any other questions. I'll give it just a second in case anybody else wants to pop one in there. Otherwise, we will hit our lightning round. Okay, we'll pop over to lightning round and come back if we get questions in the meantime. Are you ready?
I am ready, Angie. Let's go.
Two of the fastest talkers I know doing a lightning round. Someone's gonna have to flag us if we get too fast. Okay, what is the scariest thing you've ever done, and would you do it again?
All right, let's see. Okay, so I think it's doing things that are authentically me, to pave the way for myself and for others. So I dress how I want to dress. I lead how I want to lead. I say what I need to say. And sometimes it's the first time people are hearing it said that way for a woman leader and don't expect it. So like you said before, I've said this numerous times, growing up in my career, I didn't see women leaders in tech, and not many of them were bold. So I initially thought, you can't be what you don't see, but I really had to turn that on and turn it on its head and say, I do this because I want to be the leader that I wish to see for myself and others like me. So it is scary, but it is risks that I want to take. And I do it, every day, I would say.
All the time. I also absolutely love saying that you've literally thrown yourself out of a plane, and showing up authentically is the scariest, most rewarding. That makes my heart so happy to hear. Okay, best piece.
Like throwing myself out of the plane. Like if you all have not tried skydiving, that is one of the best experiences to do. So yeah, it is scary, but it's really, really amazing.
Awesome. Okay. What is the best piece of advice that anyone has ever given you?
Okay, so this one I would say is that you are always in beta. So we have to constantly keep learning and evolving, especially in a field like technology that is growing. I don't know if you guys don't know what this is, you should read up on aggregation of marginal gains theory. It's a great thing for you to look up. So it just simply states that you have to decide to improve on a particular skill by little as 1% every single day, and you would be better than at least 90% of other people who have that skill. So it's a great one to have that in your mind and say, I am going to get 1% better every single day. So that's something that was a great advice for me.
I'm going to share my great advice I just got from one of my 4-year-old daughters, who's informed me that she has 5 boyfriends, which we'll deal with at another time. But when I asked her, how did you pick them? She said, because they're good to me. And I thought, if I could have one wish for you, it's that you only pick the people in your life that are good to you, because that will always carry you farther than anything else. All right, next question. What are you reading right now?
I just finished reading Abby Wambach's bestseller, Wolfpack. I'm doing the keynote with her. She is amazing, inspiring, and it is a great leadership book specifically for women and also for allies. Again, you have the conference link. She's the keynote for our conference. She's amazing. She's also accomplished, but she's also a badass. So I really, really, enjoy talking to her. So, and she's very inspiring. So yeah, that's the book, Wolfpack. It talks a lot about old rules that you should discard and new rules to follow, and a lot of her personal stories as well.
actionable takeaways from that book too. It made it so tangible to implement like page after page. Love that. Okay, I'm going to do something crazy here. I'm going to pause lightning round because we got another question that came in and I selfishly want to hear the answer. Cheryl asks, what is your approach to parenting and career balances?
Yeah, that is a tough one because you want to be, I think as women, we strive to be a good mom, we strive to be a good contributor, we strive to be good at everything. And I think that for me, it's about one day my children need me for something, one day my job needs me. So really not doing all of it at the same time, but prioritizing and doing and balancing both. And the thing that I'll say about my team and my kids is that I allow them to fail sometimes because I know of parents that will pack their lunch boxes, stay on top of their homework, stay on top of what's happening in their school and things like that. And very early in my career, I had to say, okay, I'm going to have my kids be more independent. And so the first few times they forgot to dress in red when the rest of the school was in red or whatever else. But then they were like, Mom, remind me, I have to get a red shirt or, do this or that. And so I think, and the same thing for my team, I think trusting them and allowing them to fail and be more independent and not being a micromanager and having people around you that support you as well. So my husband and I, we really balance, he picks, when I do travel a lot for work, he helps immensely. So I think that having people that support you and then also delegating and trusting the people around you to do what's needed for them is important. And to my point earlier, it's not like it was perfect. They didn't score well or whatever in the beginning, but now they're straight A's. So I think just allowing them to prove themselves, to show themselves has helped me.
I love that.
What's right for that day or that week planning.
All right, back to lightning round. What is one thing you have to do every single day?
Oh, okay, it's a routine. Can I tell you three things?
You can tell us 3 things. I'll allow it.
So it's 20 minutes of yoga, 20 minutes of meditation, and 20 minutes of walking. I think it's just 1 hour of my day, but it really helps set the tone for the rest of my day. So I have not had coffee in 25 years, so I do have a lot of energy for that.
I can't even imagine. I can't believe you are who you are without coffee. That's incredible. Okay, we've got one last lightning round question. Look at, you're blowing people's minds, Sangeetha, in the chat. They can't believe. Can't imagine. Me too, Robin. Could not imagine life without coffee. Okay, last question in our lightning round. We have seen that women do not feel comfortable enough bragging or taking ownership of the amazing things they achieve. Would you be willing to role model for us and brag a little bit about an accomplishment, either personally or professionally?
Yes, it's funny. Bragging has a bad rep, but I think, communicating your worth and championing your contribution doesn't have to look or sound like an ego trip. I'm actually proud of many firsts that I've accomplished at Northwestern Mutual. But today I wanted to just highlight the women in tech work that we've done. I'm extremely proud of how far we've come just from last year to this year. We did the conference, again, was never something that we had even imagined. And we've done this for external events, internal women. It's 98% female speakers, by the way, and you don't have a lot of those types of conferences where speakers are 98% female. And we were able to do that last year. We want to do that this year. The WIT Squad is another one. Again, we developed the brochure, the planning, everything from ground up. And lastly, our inaugural speed coaching session. So last year in volunteering month in April, we did 20-minute speed coaching sessions for internal and external women with our leaders at Northwestern Mutual. So you could just sign up and get 20 minutes of free career advice. And we had about, between the leaders that volunteered and the people that signed up, we had about 500 people. So if you're interested in that, again, connect with us on LinkedIn. I will be announcing these things and you will get free career advice as well. So, sometimes it's like plain awkward to brag about yourself, but if you don't, you miss important opportunities that would open doors for you that if you don't speak up. I think there's a lot of research to show that, a critical factor in being hired or promoted or getting bigger raises and bonuses, you have to be willing to brag. So brag away, everybody.
Absolutely. All right, so as we close up, please, if you would like to post a brag here in the chat, we strongly encourage you to feel comfortable, test it out, get comfortable sharing your accomplishments. I think I am incredibly proud of us for this one. I feel really, really passionate about the things that we got to share. And I am so thankful for, as always, not just today, but every day, your insight, your willingness to share it, your willingness to be real and raw and vulnerable and empower the rest of us around you. I'd like to thank everybody who took time of their day to join us. I think there's magic that happens when we gather, take time for ourselves and our careers. And so thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Sangeetha.
Thank you. This was a pleasure.
Thanks, everybody.